Hello, I'm Aaron, one of the threat intel advisors at Feedly Threat Intelligence, and I'm joined today by Saif, who's one of our senior threat intel advisors, to discuss the June Microsoft Patch Tuesday report, which you can access for free in the link in the description below of this video. Saif, thanks for joining. Looks like the June report from Microsoft just dropped with a handful of critical CVEs, remote code execution, some exploitation of or escalation of privileges. Are there any specific vulnerabilities that you think the team should be like most aware of?
Definitely, the first vulnerability that stood out to me and will to other teams monitoring the threat landscape is CVE 2025-33053, the WebDAV remote code execution vulnerability. So this vulnerability is triggered by sending a specially crafted request to the WebDAV service. It was tagged as exploitation detected, so signaling confirmed in the wild abuse. We're also seeing reports released shortly after Patch Tuesday linking it to a threat actor called Stealth Falcon, which is a Middle Eastern cyber espionage group. And this vulnerability was used by them to install malware, establish persistence, and then move laterally within the networks. And what's interesting about this vulnerability is there's no authentication required. So attackers can exploit this remotely without any credentials. And it
Hmm.
was also added to that CISA's known exploited vulnerability catalog list.
Okay. So for this vulnerability, would you consider this to be like a 0-day vulnerability that was exploited prior to Patch Tuesday being released?
Correct. So by the looks of the timing of that report that was released by Checkpoint Research, uh, it was shortly after the drop of Patch Tuesday's vulnerabilities, indicating they probably had that report teed up since they've seen that vulnerability being exploited in the wild. So I would consider it a 0-day exploited vulnerability.
Gotcha. Are there any other CVEs from the list that are of interest?
Yeah, the second one I wanted to highlight was the 33073 Windows SMB elevation of privilege. So a high risk local privilege escalation vulnerability affecting the SMB service, which is often targeted in post-exploitation and ransomware operations. So exploitation has already been detected in the wild with some research groups confirming that they're going to publish some technical details shortly after its disclosure. So only an authenticated user is needed. Attackers don't need any administrative privileges to exploit it. And this follows the same pattern as May's past Patch Tuesday release of the CLFS and DWM LPEs. So they're seemingly low profile bugs, but they have high post access value. And then some honorable mentions would be the 47162 vulnerability, 47164, and 47167. These are all Office RCE vulnerabilities, ranging around the score of a CVSS 8.4, and they're more likely to be exploited since they can be used via malicious documents or a preview pane exploit. So they're consistent with Office RCEs leveraged in the May Patch Tuesday release. And again, they're commonly weaponized in early stage phishing campaigns and often used to deliver those loaders or initial payloads.
Gotcha. So what are the biggest exploitation risks posed by these vulnerabilities, and how might attackers be able to weaponize those?
Yeah, going back to that WebDAV RCE, which was used by that APT group, Stealth Falcon, for initial access. So they only required that specially crafted HTTP WebDAV request. And this may be delivered via spear phishing email or embedded into an external network facing service. And what's interesting enough is that they're also leveraging living off the land binaries or lol bins. So they're using this to avoid detection and maintain that stealth that APT groups tend to do. Regarding the SMB elevation of privilege, we're seeing something like this would enable a standard user to escalate privileges to system. So often used after an initial compromise through phishing, maybe. So again, pre-disclosure from research team increases that urgency of exploit code being available in the public soon. And this affects the broader enterprise exposure. So it impacts any domain joined system running that SMB service, and not just your domain controllers. And this makes it a more realistic way for threat actors to move laterally via most networks.
Gotcha. Cool. So normally, for my last question, I usually ask something that's focused for vulnerability teams. But just out of curiosity, for CTI teams, how would a CTI team contribute to patch prioritization and detection beyond just flagging these vulnerabilities from Patch Tuesday?
Well, that's a great question. CTI's role just goes beyond identifying those vulnerabilities. So we help teams understand which one matters most to our environment. So something like after a patch Tuesday, we monitor for signs of active exploitation, like a proof of concept code or a threat actor chatter. For example, if we see a vulnerability gaining traction, we alert that vulnerability team so that they can reassess those patching priorities. And in some cases where a system can't be patched right away, like a critical network gateway, we support operations by recommending compensating controls. So this might include a network IDS signature or a SIEM query to detect exploitation attempts. And this helps that detection team build use cases tailored to a likely attack path threat actors might take, while the vulnerability team confirms whether these exploits can succeed in our environment or not. So overall, CTI adds that proactive layer to defense. So we tailor intelligence to organizations' unique risk profile and bridge that gap between patching decisions and real world threats.
Hmm. Yeah, understanding that workflow kind of makes me think about the fact that this particular report in the Patch Tuesday report in your first tab there, how it's not just a static report once it's released. As new information comes in, if there are new exploits, this updates in real time. So it's something that those teams would be able to continue to monitor, going forward. Is that correct?
That's exactly right, Aaron. So with the vulnerability dashboard Feedly offers, it makes it easier for a CTI team or a vulnerability team to monitor for those proof of exploits, constant chatter, um, trending analysis, so that they can keep tabs of a big list of vulnerabilities that are usually released in reports such as a Patch Tuesday, which range from a count of 66 to 120 vulnerabilities. So having that single pane glass view and the ability to monitor for any POCs, POEs, trending chatter makes it easier for those teams to keep up and helps with that element of patch prioritization, which a lot of organizations tend to struggle with.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for the analysis stuff. Really appreciate your contribution here. And thank you for joining us for the breakdown of the June Patch Tuesday reports. If you do want to explore this report further, you can access it for free. Again, that description is in the link below. Free report from Feedly. So thank you for watching and good luck patching.